Welcome back, true crime fans. When a ghost speaks, tap that subscribe button if you think you could stand face to face with the system that buried you alive, because this is where our ghost finally starts to speak. By 2010, Thomas Silverstein was more rumor than man. New officers at ADX were told about him the way sailors are warned about reefs: a name, a cell number, a caution to never get too close. Inmates whispered about the Phantom down in Range 13. Journalists were denied access, lawyers hit brick walls. But from inside Cell 118, Silverstein began to push back. He filed lawsuits challenging his conditions. He wrote letters to law professors and reporters describing the psychological effects of decades of sensory deprivation. He sketched intricate drawings of the cell that held him, each line a silent testimony to the years. His handwriting became cramped, his sentences halting, but his message was clear. I am being buried alive. Outside the walls, the tide of opinion on solitary confinement was beginning to shift. Studies documented its devastating impact on mental health. Former wardens admitted the system was overused. Civil liberties groups started citing the Silverstein case in their arguments. Even some correctional officers quietly wondered if the punishment had become a kind of slow-motion execution. Inside, nothing changed. Guards still slid his food through a slot. His hour of recreation still came in an empty indoor cage. Even his art supplies were rationed. Yet the act of writing and drawing became a lifeline, a way to prove he still existed. Then, in 2011, something rare happened. A federal judge ruled that Silverstein could pursue his Eighth Amendment claim that 30 years of total isolation might constitute cruel and unusual punishment. It wasn't freedom, but it was a crack in the wall. For the first time in decades, the Bureau of Prisons had to answer questions about a man it had tried to erase. Silverstein's letters became more hopeful. He asked about trees, about sky, about whether he would ever be able to hold his adult son's hand. In one he wrote, I've made mistakes, but I'm still human. I want to die a human being, not a ghost. But the system moved slowly. Appeals dragged on. Health checks were cursory. His heart grew weaker. And in the fall of 2018, before any ruling could force a change, Thomas Silverstein collapsed in a Colorado hospital following heart surgery. He died still technically under no human contact status. A man who had spent 36 years in a box, longer than any other federal prisoner in modern history. His death reignited the debate his life had come to symbolize: whether a government can safely lock a person away until he becomes a shadow, and what it costs to the inmate, to the staff, and to the society that allows it. Even now, the cell he occupied is still there at ADX Florence. New inmates walk past it without a nameplate, just a number. Some say at night you can hear tapping from inside, as if a man were still trying to get someone's attention. Others dismiss it as pipes contracting in the cold. What's certain is this: the story of Thomas Silverstein changed the way Americans talk about solitary confinement. He became a case study, a cautionary tale, a human face on a policy. Whether you see him as a monster who killed a guard or a victim of state cruelty, his story forces a question few want to answer: how far is too far? And if you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. The Legacy of a Concrete Tomb. The news of Silverstein's death at age 67 rippled through ADX Florence faster than anyone expected. On paper, it was just another line on a roster. In the units, however, guards and inmates alike stopped to whisper. Some said the system had finally outlasted its most notorious prisoner. Others felt a chill at how quietly it had happened. A man who hadn't touched another person's hand in decades dying on a hospital table, still technically under no human contact. Outside, the case that bore his name didn't disappear. Lawyers used his story in briefs, challenging long-term solitary confinement in California, Texas, and New York. International human rights groups cited the Silverstein conditions in reports to the UN, arguing that decades of isolation amounted to torture. Former wardens began to speak more openly about what they had seen and done, confessing that locking a man down forever had costs no one could measure. Journalists retraced his life through letters, sketches, and court records. They found a boy who had grown up in juvenile detention, a robber turned gang member turned killer, And finally, a gray-haired man whose world had shrunk to 12 feet of concrete. Their articles asked a hard question. Was he the monster the Bureau had painted, or had the system built the monster it then locked away? Inside ADX, Silverstein's cell was reassigned a number, but not a nameplate. Officers called it the Ghost Cell. New inmates walked past it on their way to showers or hearings, sometimes pausing to look at the narrow window high in the wall. The tapping pipes, the strange echoes at night, became part of the folklore of Range 13, the ghost of ADX who had lasted longer in the box than anyone thought possible. In 2020, a small mural appeared on a street in Denver. It showed a hand pressed to glass and the words, "No human contact is not a life." No one claimed credit. It was gone within a week. Photos of it circulated online, paired with Silverstein's sketches. In comment sections, strangers argued about his crimes, his punishment, and what it meant for a country that calls itself free. Ava Brooks, the young investigator from our previous story, was long gone from the Bureau by then, working as a reporter. She covered the lawsuits inspired by Silverstein's case and interviewed former ADX staff willing to go on record. Her last article about him ended with a simple line. He died in custody, but he changed the conversation about solitary confinement forever. Even now, when advocates testify before legislatures about limiting solitary confinement, they hold up his name. Even now, inside ADX Florence, the policy he lived under still exists. And even now, on nights when the wind rattles the razor wire and the lights flicker in the control room, some officers swear they can hear a soft, steady tapping coming from cell 118. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.